Dodgers fans, brace yourselves because a 7-time MVP just took a shot at Shohei Ohtani, and this is making headlines across the baseball world. Ohtani is used to the spotlight, but when a legend speaks out against him, you know it's going to stir up some serious controversy. What was said? Why is this former MVP calling out Ohtani? And how are Dodgers fans reacting to it? This could add even more fuel to the fire as Ohtani begins his journey in Los Angeles. So let's break down exactly what happened and what this means for the Dodgers' new superstar. Shohei Ohtani is no stranger to criticism, but when a 7-time MVP takes a public shot at him, you know it's going to make waves across the baseball world. The Dodgers' newest superstar has already faced enormous pressure after signing his record-breaking contract, but now he's dealing with some unexpected heat from a legendary player. The question is, why? What did this former MVP say about Ohtani, and is there any truth to it? Or is this just another case of a baseball icon not respecting the new era of the game? The situation has Dodgers fans talking, and it's only adding to the already intense spotlight on Ohtani's first season in La. Shohei Ohtani is considered by many to be a once-in-a-generation talent, a player who can hit like an MVP and pitch like an ace, something we haven't seen at this level since Babe Ruth. But even with all his success, not everyone is convinced that Ohtani deserves all the praise and attention he's getting, and now a 7-time MVP has added his voice to the conversation, and it wasn't exactly a compliment. So what exactly was said, and who said it? Was this just an offhand comment, or something more serious that could spark a bigger debate about Ohtani's place in baseball history? We have all the details, so let's break it down. This all started when this former MVP was asked about the current state of the game and the impact of Shohei Ohtani. Now you'd think most baseball legends would praise a guy like Ohtani. After all, what he's doing is unprecedented in the modern game. But instead, this 7-time MVP wasn't so generous with his words. Instead of hyping Ohtani up, he questioned just how valuable he really is and whether his impact is as big as people make it out to be. According to him, Ohtani's two-way ability, while impressive, doesn't necessarily make him the greatest player in baseball history. He pointed out that Ohtani has only played in one postseason series in his entire career, and that until he delivers in October, he's still got something to prove. In other words, he's suggesting that Ohtani's greatness is a bit overhyped, at least until he carries a team to a championship. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard this kind of argument, but coming from a 7-time MVP, it carries a lot more weight, and it immediately sparked a reaction from Dodgers fans. Some agreed that Ohtani still has more to prove in the postseason, while others felt that this was just unnecessary criticism aimed at a player who has already done things no one else has. But here's the thing, while it's true that Ohtani hasn't had much postseason experience, that's not really his fault. He spent years playing for the Angels, a team that failed to build a contender around him. Despite having Mike Trout, one of the best players of all time, it's hard to win championships when you don't have the roster to compete. And that's why Ohtani signed with the Dodgers. He wanted to be in a position where he could finally prove himself on the biggest stage. So is this criticism fair, or is it just another case of an old-school baseball legend not appreciating how much the game has evolved over the years? Some of the greatest players in history never won a World Series. Does that make them any less great? Should a player's legacy be defined by championships, or by what they do on the field every day? This brings us to another key point. Is Ohtani really overhyped, or is he actually underrated? When you look at what he's accomplished in just a few years, it's hard to say he's overhyped. He's already won 2 AL MVPs, dominated as both a hitter and a pitcher, and changed the way people think about what's possible in baseball. In fact, some argue that if anything, we're not giving Ohtani enough credit for doing something that no one else has done at this level. But at the same time, baseball is a sport that values October success. Legends are made in the playoffs, and for all of Ohtani's incredible regular season numbers, he hasn't had the chance to prove himself in the postseason yet. That's why this year with the Dodgers is so important. It's his opportunity to silence the critics and show that he can perform when it matters most. And let's be honest, if Ohtani leads the Dodgers to a World Series and plays a key role in their success, all of this criticism disappears. No one will be questioning his impact, or whether he deserves to be called one of the greatest of all time. In fact, if he delivers in October, he might just cement himself as the best player we've ever seen. But let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Is this really about Ohtani, Or is it part of a bigger trend in baseball history? Because this isn't the first time we've seen a generational talent get criticized by a former superstar. In fact, this happens all the time in sports. Every era has its legends, and sometimes those legends aren't ready to embrace the next wave of greatness. We saw it with players like Barry Bonds, who despite being one of the most dominant hitters ever was constantly questioned for not winning a World Series until late in his career. We saw it with guys like LeBron James in the NBA, who had to prove himself as a champion before people gave him the respect he deserved, and now we're seeing it with Shohei Ohtani. So at the end of the day, is this really about Ohtani's ability? Or is it just another case of a former legend refusing to give full credit to the new face of baseball? No matter how you look at it, this situation only adds more fuel to the fire. As Ohtani prepares for his first season with the Dodgers, all eyes will be on him to see how he responds, and whether he can prove once and for all that he's not just a great player, but one of the greatest to ever play the game. Let's start with what was actually said. The 7-time MVP was asked about Ohtani's impact on the game, and instead of offering praise, he questioned whether Ohtani is as great as everyone claims. He specifically pointed out that while Ohtani's two-way ability is impressive, it doesn't necessarily make him the best player in baseball history. In his opinion, winning championships and delivering in October is what truly defines greatness. And since Ohtani has only played in one postseason series, he still has a lot to prove. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard an argument like this, but coming from a player of this stature, it carries a lot more weight. Some fans and analysts agree that Ohtani's legacy won't be complete until he wins a World Series, but others feel this is just unfair criticism aimed at a player who has already achieved what no one else in modern baseball has. Here's the thing, it's not Ohtani's fault that he hasn't had much postseason experience. He spent years with the Los Angeles Angels, a team that, despite having Mike Trout, one of the best players of all time, failed to build a contender around him. It's hard to win a World Series when your team isn't even making the playoffs. That's exactly why Ohtani signed with the Dodgers. He wanted to put himself in a position where he could finally prove himself on baseball's biggest stage. But does this criticism hold any weight? Let's be real, baseball is a sport that values October success. Legends are made in the postseason, and no matter how dominant a player is in the regular season, their true greatness is often measured by what they do when the stakes are highest. We've seen this happen with other great players. Barry Bonds was one of the most feared hitters of all time, but until he had a legendary postseason run in 2002, some questioned whether he was truly one of the all-time greats. The same thing happened to Alex Rodriguez before he delivered a clutch performance for the Yankees in 2009. And if you want to stay updated on all the latest Dodgers news, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. This is going to be a huge season for Law, and we'll be covering everything from big trades to injury updates to all the latest headlines. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.